what am I?
Ranchers and Cowhands by Zoe, Kyle, and somewhat Simon. The start of cattle drives. The Spanish and Mexicans set up cattle ranches in the Southwest. Strays from these ranches grew into large herds of wild cattle known as longhorns. After the Civil War, the demand for beef increased. Texas ranchers began rounding up herds of longhorns and leading them hundreds of miles north to railroad lines. These long trips were called cattle drives. Cowhands. Ranchers employed cowhands to tend their cattle and to drive herds to the market. They learned about riding from Spanish and Mexican vaqueros. Vaqueros were skilled riders who herded cattle on ranches in Mexico, California, and the Southwest. Cowhands used lariat, which is a leather rope or whip. They had wide-brim hats, and they had chaps to protect a rider's legs from the thorny plants in the Southwest. Cattle drives were hard work. On the trail. A cattle drive was hot, tiring work. Cowhands worked in all kinds of weather and faced many dangers. They had to prevent nervous cattle from drowning while crossing a fast-flowing river. They had to fight raging grass fires, and they had to face attacks from cattle thieves. One of their worst fears was a stampede. A clap of thunder or gunshot could send thousands of longhorns off on a run. Cowhands were lucky enough to earn $1 for their hard work. A very famous trail was the Chisholm Trail in 1867. Cow towns. Cow towns were settlements that grew up at the end of a cattle trail. Cattle were held in pens in cow towns until they could be loaded into a railroad car and shipped. Cow towns attracted settlers who wanted to build stable communities. Cattle boom. In 1870s, ranching spread north from Texas across the grassy plains. Here, cattle grazed from Kansas to the present-day Montana. To identify cattle, each ranch had its own brand and was burned into the cattle's hide. Many conflicts, especially over water, occurred during the cattle boom. When shepherds moved onto the plains, ranchers tried to drive them out. The ranchers complained that sheep nibbled the grass so low that the cattle could not eat it. End of cattle boom. In the 1870s, farmers began moving onto the range, causing land to be more scarce. These farmers fenced in their fields with barbed wire. The sharp barbs kept cattle and sheep from pushing over fences and trampling plowed fields. Bad weather killed millions of cattle. The cold winters of 1886 and 1887 caused 9 out of 10 cattle to freeze to death. Cattle owners began to buy land and fence it in. Soon farmers and ranchers divided the open range into a patchwork of large fenced plots. And that was the end of the cattle boom. Questions. Why was there cattle drivers? What was life like for a cowhand? Why did the cattle kingdom end? The end. Written, produced, directed, and voiced by Zoe. Cameraman Kyle and card flipper Simon.